What's up, homegirls? ¿Qué onda, morras? Buenos días, tardes, o noches, since I don't know when you're listening to this. I hope your day is going good, or at least better than yesterday. Welcome to Te Crees Muy Muy, the podcast para las homegirls who are healing, growing, and figuring life out, sin plan, con flow. I'm your host, aka your Chicana homegirl from Cali, Stephanie, and as always, muchísimas gracias for pressing play and hanging out with me. And your reminder of the day, morra, el tren no se fue, tú vales oro, no migajas. Agárrate las pestañas y vámonos. Now, let's get into it. What's up, homegirls? Welcome back to episode 15 of the Crees Muy Muy podcast. Let me go ahead and get started. Today's episode is about something in the Latin community that we really don't talk about, but probably should. And as always, a quick disclaimer. I'm speaking from my experience as a first-gen Mexican-American. Not all the Latinos are the same, and our experiences can look different, but this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And yes, I'm still reading a script. Anyways, like I mentioned on my TikTok this past weekend, how girls are taught to change how they act around men instead of men being told compórtate, and how that silence is part of the culture too. There are so many layers to that. Why aren't men held accountable the same way? Why do girls, the women, las muchachas, end up carrying the responsibility to adjust, to be careful, and to be quiet? I remember when I was younger, my dad would have his friends or my uncles over. They would be outside drinking, hanging out in the garage or in the yard, and I would always wanted to be outside too. But I was told, no está bien que estés afuera, hay puros hombres. And I wasn't even a teenager, y'all. Sometimes they'd be in the garage or outside, and I'd be on the other side of the yard or inside looking out. So I wasn't even trying to be next to them at all. At that time, I didn't question it. It just felt normal, like, okay, this is how things are. But now, as a 39-year-old, I look back and I think about it differently. Was it because he wanted to drink in peace and not worry about me? Was it because he had friends he fully didn't trust? Or was it easier to move me instead of addressing the environment? Honestly, I think it was a mix of everything. And that's where the deeper thought comes in. Why are girls removed from the situation instead of the situation being corrected? Why are we taught to adjust our behavior, our presence, and our comfort instead of men being told to fix theirs? Another uncomfortable layer is how families sometimes keep certain men around even when the energy feels off. Nobody says it out loud. It's silence, it's side comments, unspoken rules. You learn early what spaces you shouldn't be in and how you're supposed to act around certain people. Over time, that silence stops feeling like a choice and it starts feeling like culture. And when you grow up, you realize it wasn't just one moment, it was a pattern of silence around men's behavior, uncomfortable dynamics, and things that were normalized under the idea of respect, and that's just how things are. Another layer that doesn't get talked about enough is how religion and culture mix into that silence. A lot of Latinos are Catholic, even if they don't actively participate anymore, or practice it, I should say. It becomes part of your identity. You get baptized, you grow up in it, and culturally, it just stays with you for life. Because of that, many people say they are conservative or pro-life because of those religious values. But this is where the contradiction comes in. A lot of people claim pro-life values, but in reality, it often feels more like pro-birth. Because where's the same loud energy when children are actually suffering, being abused, or failed by the systems that were in place to protect them? Where is the accountability when scandals came out involving trusted institutions, including the Catholic Church itself? Yes, you can pray for victims, and prayer matters for many people, but it is also okay to feel anger, to question systems, and to demand accountability instead of staying silent just to protect tradition or reputation. This comes back to the bigger cultural pattern of silence around abuse, silence around men's behavior, silence around uncomfortable family dynamics. We are taught to respect elders, respect men, respect religion, and respect authority, but not always taught how to question harmful patterns within those same spaces. Hey homegirls, before you keep listening, did you know I made y'all a journal? It's a short, cute 15 pages para que no andes toda confundida. See un journal. It's called El Journal de Mis Life Shoulds. It's not a miracle fix. Let's keep it real. It's not a whole heal in 10 days type of thing, because let's be real, you've been carrying all this shit since you were younger. It's a small, simple tool to help you check in with yourself instead of bottling everything up. I made 2 versions, PDF if you want to print it and actually write it like right inside, or a Google Doc if you want to do it from your phone. Think of like heal on the go, right? And girl, si tienes tiempo de andar ahí stalking your ex-boyfriend for 20 minutes on any social media platform, you got time pa esto. Y esto honestly, it's better for you. The link is in my bio. Now, let me go ahead and get back to this episode. Another contradiction I've noticed is how some men in the community publicly talk about traditional values, modesty, and family roles, yet privately normalize heavy drinking, objectifying women, or consuming sexualized content online. Meanwhile, the same women they criticize are expected to be servicial, respectful, and morally upright at all times. That imbalance is rarely addressed openly. Women are expected to uphold the culture, the home, the children, the emotional labor, and even the reputation of the family, while men's behavior is more easily excused as just how men are. And if a woman questions it, she risks being labeled disrespectful, dramatic, or rebellious instead of reflective. And my favorite, oh, she's a fucking liberal. This is why the silence becomes generational, not because people don't see the issues, but because questioning them can feel like questioning the culture itself, the religion, the family structure, and even your upbringing. So many things get normalized: gender roles, drinking, lack of open communications about sex, and double standards, all under the umbrella of that's just how our culture is. I also want to talk about the role of women in all of this. Since many of us are taught to be submissive, that mindset sometimes gets passed down through generations even when they know certain things are wrong. It becomes less about agreeing with it and more about repeating what was normalized, or maybe even participating in it. The way domestic violence gets treated in many Latin households is honestly very sad and hard to talk about. Many of our moms, abuelitas, and past generations stayed because leaving was heavily frowned upon due to religion, lack of options, financial dependence, and lack of support systems. Even today, some women still don't have anyone to help them leave, not even one safe person. And just because it is a delicate subject does not mean it should stay silent. The whole mentality of, pues, ¿qué hiciste que te pegó? Is not okay. Blaming the women instead of holding the abuser accountable has been normalized in certain spaces. Sometimes other women see it and turn a blind eye because it's not their business, or they don't want to ruffle feathers. Yo no me voy a meter porque no quiero que me traiga problemas. And if a woman does leave, she can be judged, isolated, or even outcast instead of supported. Another uncomfortable truth is that older Latina women can sometimes be harsh toward younger Latinas. The mindset of yo le chingué, así que tú también puedes is often framed as strength, but in reality, it can be harmful. Enduring suffering should not be the standard that gets passed down to daughters, daughter-in-law, or many other women. This ties into the generational patterns that we normalized for years. Many women were stuck in old school marriages they couldn't leave, and even if they were unhappy, and admitting that was not socially acceptable. Some were taken very young by older men, se la robaron, and had little to no agency. That dynamic became culturally normalized despite clear power imbalances. Even now, teenage girls dating much older men can be minimized as long as he is respetuoso, trabajador, o te quiere, even though it raises serious concerns about maturity, power, and boundaries. And all along, the parents knew about it and they were okay about it, them being together. We also don't really talk about motherhood and how heavily the load falls on the mom. Yes, that can be universal, but culturally there are layers like a cuarentena, expectations, and very opinionated mother-in-laws on both sides. Suddenly, everyone has an opinion while the mother is healing and expected to handle everything. Many times the man is less involved because he is working, which I understand to an extent, but that doesn't erase the emotional and mental load. Postpartum depression is real, yet rarely talked about openly. Instead, the mindset becomes, she's the mom, she'll figure it out, as if motherhood automatically comes with endless strength without support. Another thing rarely Another thing rarely talked about is periods and puberty. Many of us were told tampons meant losing your virginity. Damn. Or that they were for las güeras. There was little real education about menstruation, hormones, or puberty. It's just uninformed teenage girls navigating silence, myths, and embarrassment instead of guidance. And honestly, I could keep going because there are so many layers to what our culture stays silent about. Gender roles, religion, motherhood, sexuality, mental health, generational expectations, debts, addictions, crime, etc. And thinking back on my own childhood, even small things show how deeply these roles were normalized. I don't have any brothers, I just have sisters. My sisters and I, not including the youngest, would automatically ask my dad if he was hungry as soon as he got home so we could heat up his food and his tortillas. I don't even remember who taught us that. It was just understood. If my mom was home, dinner was ready when he arrived. If she had errands to run, she would rush home because tu papá ya casi llega and the food had to be ready. And when my grandma was around, my mom's mom, that old school mindset was even stronger. She would somehow hear my dad coming home and immediately single my mom to ask if he was hungry and start calentándole la comida. Keep in mind, everybody would say that supposedly my grandma couldn't hear at all. Que conveniencia, right? What could actually cause tension was my dad heating up his own food or washing his own plate. She would say things like she couldn't believe there was a house full of women and he was doing that himself. Una casa llena de viejas y tu papá lavando los trastes, and she would shake her head in disbelief and in disgust, thinking that all of us were hella lazy because we didn't heat up his food or that he had to do it himself, when a couple hours before he said he wasn't hungry and that he would heat up his own food. But she didn't hear that, so of course she would hella judge us. Looking back at it, it really shows how deeply servicial rules were embedded into our upbringing without anyone ever sitting us down and explicitly teaching it. Gracias, homegirls, for listening and being here. Let me know on TikTok or YouTube if you would want a part 2, because this conversation definitely doesn't end in one episode. I hope someone listening to this felt seen, heard, and understood. And remember, morras, no están solas. So that was my take on this. There's, like I said, so many other things that I added, but I actually wanted to keep it también short. And I actually didn't want to get so deep into it. I had made that comment on TikTok and someone had replied and said, no, these conversations that you may feel are deep, we should talk about it. Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff que quiero seguir diciendo, but I don't want to bore you guys either. Anyways, thank you so much for checking this episode out. Remember to follow the podcast on TikTok and Instagram, Te Querés Muy Muy Podcast. And I will catch you guys next Monday. Bye. Okay, what y'all think of that episode? Les gustó? Not so much? Did it make y'all ponder or just be like, esta morra no sabe nada? I just want y'all to feel seen and understood, not stressed out. Anyways, I'll catch y'all on the next episode. And remember, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. By Henry Ford. Thanks for stopping by. Share, comment, and engage. Don't forget to follow this podcast on Instagram at Te Querés Muy Muy Podcast. Go engage and invite other homegirls. Let's build that community. If you want, feel free to DM me for topics. And with that, I'll catch you next time. Bye.